Hello, my name is Rick Gordon, and I am a returning student working on finishing an English degree that I started many years ago. Today I'd like to speak to you about what we've been studying about rhetoric and how I see that working in a community of my own. A little background first on myself. I was born into a blue-collar family. You couldn't get any more blue-collar than my father. From his union membership in Local 26, Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, to the beer he drank as soon as that work was over. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. As soon as my youngest brother was in school, she went to work at a grocery store. And she joined a union also and worked there for many years. Neither of my parents were college educated. But I would have to say my mom was a very intelligent woman, and still is very worldly. So many times when we were growing up, when we had questions about things, issues, or things, we would generally go to our mother, not so much her father. And when some of these things would come up and they would be in a family debate, I can remember many times my father just getting upset and yelling at my mother, "How do you know these things? How'd you get to be so smart?" And my mother would say, "Well, Frank, I read." And my father, Frank, of course, reading never ranked up there as one of his great passions in life. Just couldn't match memorizing the lyrics to country music songs. So again, for most of the time we went to our mother for things, but there were times when we wanted answers to specific questions that we valued our father's opinion. Maybe it was sports, mechanical things, or the way things were built. And I think about that in relation to the way Aristotle breaks down rhetoric into an ethos, a pathos, and a logos. And I see kind of the motivations of why we would accept one parent's views over another. And then when I take that same, what I've learned there, that same kind of thought pattern, and I apply it to a community of my own right now, I can see it at work. And in my local church right now, I can see on the issue of marriage, this art of rhetoric being played out firsthand on the major issue of marriage. Before I get into that, though, I just want to lay out how the church works. Many of you all may already know this. Personally, I'm a Methodist. I go to a church here locally, about a mile away from my house, but it's part of a bigger organization. It's the Methodist organization, whether it's Lutheran or Presbyterian or whatever. They work the same way in the sense that there is a governing body, a council, a board, and then from there is just a strict hierarchy of bishops and superintendents, and all the way down to the pastors, the person who's actually giving the message. And the Methodist Church has a message or a platform very similar to our political platforms. And the way that's come about is each year they have a conference. People go and they debate issues and things, and then they take a vote. And that develops into their platform. Many issues would be like your death penalty. The church is against death penalty. They value human life. Or the church really wants to put emphasis on worldwide hunger, and so they want more money to go towards that. These are the things that would be in a platform. And nothing right now is debated more heavily than the issue of marriage. So I'd like to look at three kinds of marriages, two of which maybe you don't think about too much, and let's see how this art of rhetoric is really playing itself out. Of course, the number one issue, maybe in the United States, one of the top issues, and in the churches right now, is marriage equality, or the right of gay men and lesbian women to get married together and get married in the church. Secularly, out in our country, of course, this is a debate where it's about 50-50. as far as the states go, but the movement has been towards allowing this. The church, the Methodist Church that I'll talk about that I know of, right now they are against it technically. It is not allowed in their platform, but it's one of those rules very similar to the laws that we have in the United States. Well, it might be on the books, but they're just not enforcing it. So right now they're kind of in a limbo. And the reason for that is because at the annual conferences where they debate this issue, the votes for the last 5 years have really been getting closer and closer and closer. It's almost even now as to whether the Methodist Church will sanction same-sex marriages. And when I think about the way the debates go, and I think about the ethos, pathos, and logos, those aspects of the argument, I think of both the for and against in the ethos. Both of the presenters in there, in this church community, have the same credibility because they're both of these speakers have accepted Jesus Christ as their Savior, and in that regard have accepted the burden of humanity on them, or living with your neighbor as your brother, your brother's keepers. I'm going to skip over pathos just for a second, and I'm going to function on or look at the logos, or the logical side of it. And in a church kind of argument, we've always, the logic isn't so much science or law, it is the Bible, what's written in the Bible. And of course, there is the strongest argument for against, because there's the passage that a man should not lie with a man. But one of the interesting things about the logic, or the logos kind of argument, is that when you look at the Bible, while you can look at the words inside of it, what must go along with that is the spirit of the Bible. It is, if no one could remember any of the words inside of it, they would remember the spirit of the Bible, which is humanity, inclusiveness, helping one another. So the logical argument just doesn't quite go. It might be a little bit more for those who are arguing against, but there's that spirit that's up there. But what happens in this argument right now is that, for the most part, it's the pathos, or the audience's feelings right now, that just overwhelm the whole argument, or is moving the argument, should I say that way. Because the audience as a whole, because it's a Christian community, they want to be inclusive. They want to bring people together. So when they see an issue that is so passionate for other people, they become passionate too in wanting to help them. And in this marriage equality argument, I would think very soon our Methodist Church is going to adopt it, because of the audiences wanting to. No matter what the speakers say to them, it will, I think, happen. A different marriage that you might not, or you think about a little bit, it's a little bit in the news, is polygamy. In our secular world, all 50 states do not allow a man to be married to more women, or a woman to be married to multiple men. Utah is the only state that kind of casts a blind eye to it, although technically you're only allowed to marry one person legally. Spiritually, you can marry other women and cohabitate with them. Some of you may have seen the show Sister Wives with the Brown family. It kind of brought it to the forefront. Here's the church's opinion, or the Methodist Church's opinion on it, is that they do not believe in it. It's not a part of their doctrine, and they don't allow it. If there is an argument for it, which is minor, it is the logical argument, because so many of the characters in the Bible were married to more than one woman. Moses, the great wise Solomon, Esau, it goes on and on. But that doesn't carry over past the ethos